I'm just so excited to have somebody I admire, a friend, my former boss, my comrade, Mr. Lungisa Fuzile, who's here to join me in this leadership conversation. Ziz?
The pleasure is mine, Sugwin.
How are you, sir?
At last I'm here.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
I'm feeling great.
Yes.
Yeah, a bit resentful of you that you got me out of my very warm bed on a cold winter morning. But
Yes.
I'm delighted to be here.
Young people are here today and you're engaging with them. What does it take for someone like you, from very humble beginnings, to be the top civil servant in finance when you ran the treasury for many years? What did it take to get there?
I'll talk just about two things. Maybe let's make them three.
Yeah.
Let's make them three. The first one, which is really foundational, and it's something that I hope to cover during the masterclass today, that good education. Now, you and I, at some point in our lives, might have come across elements of Bantu education.
Yes.
But notwithstanding that, the teachers we had
Yeah.
knew that at some point South Africa could be free.
Yes.
And when it gets free, it would need educated people. So they did the best they could with the limited resources they had to lay that foundation. So you need an education.
Yeah.
If it's the best quality you can get,
Yeah.
that's a good start. Secondly, in any role one gets into, if you want to succeed,
Yeah.
you must exert yourself to the maximum. Take no task as a small task. Give it your all, because it could just be the thing that gets you noticed.
Yes.
And finally, you and I know this, and we spoke a lot about it, and I know it's your passion. Any young person and every young person needs some sponsors along the way. Some of the people who sponsored me, who supported me, who saw potential in me, didn't know me from a bar of soap. But when they saw the two other things that I'm talking about, they said, I can take a bet on this one.
Yes.
And I did my best to make sure that I don't let them down.
When people think of the public service, sometimes they don't think of quality, they don't think of high standards, they don't think of excellence. You and a number of people that worked in the public service set the bar very high because you didn't believe that notion. You actually wanted the public service to be seen at the highest level. That National Treasury team was so highly regarded. Why is it important for young people to want to go into public service and do the most excellent work in public service?
You know, Sugwini, most people don't appreciate this. You can never have a thriving private sector with a public service that is on its knees, that is dysfunctional, that is in disarray. In your previous conversation, you interacted with Pete.
Yes.
And you're talking about the very, very topical issue of NHI.
Yes.
Policy making is so important. You and I are in financial services, have been now. At least I joined you 6.5 years ago. We face regulations. Where do they come from? Their design, their application, enforcement. It comes from the public service. So the rules of the game are set by the public service. So the public service cannot be mediocre.
Yes.
If you cannot expect that the people who design the rules of the game, who referee the game, can can come with half-baked rules, rules that in fact hurt the flow of the game, if you just take that metaphor further. So we need a top-class civil service that has got the best in class. And I used to challenge people about this because, as you know, I lectured for 8 years at a historically white university, by the way, the University of Natal. And I would say to people, some of the people who go to the private sector, black, white, Indian, colored, if I were to use racial categorizations, passed through these hands. Now, all of a sudden, once they wear the hat of being in the private sector, you see them as superior. When they have passed through my hands, and several of us, we had Andre Roux, who had been a professor at Western Cape University, Andrew Donaldson. The list is very long. Former professors of economics, of mathematics, of accounting, you name all of these fields, congregating together to build the national treasury. And all of a sudden, we said, let's disabuse people of the notion that the public sector is for people who are of below average intellect, who are not well-read, well-traveled, who have seen many parts of the world. You know, let's disabuse people of that. And we became a magnet to talent. We were able to attract some of the best people from private sector institutions because we had that. And that's the thing that brought me to the good work that your foundation, by the way, is doing.
So if I think about what the country faces now, you are one of those people who was at the center of trying to find common ground from sometimes disparate views about putting South Africa first. In those difficult times where there were difficulties within the presidency, difficulties politically, how South Africa was seen, you are one of the people who found a way of galvanizing government, business, and others to go and present a united face in Davos and others, in IMF and others, because if South Africa doesn't succeed, none of these areas would succeed. We face that moment now. What advice would you give to leaders who want to see this thing of building things together, although the ideas are varied?
It's such an important question, Lincoln, but let me try and give a brief answer, and I hope I'll do justice to your good question. One of the striking things about South Africans is that in good times, they tend to shine the spotlight, some of them, not all of them, on differences. You would even think that when you listen to some people, especially politicians, I hope they don't mind me taking a dig at them, but because they try to show how different they are from the next ones. Yet, when you sit with them individually, in quiet spaces, and you say, what gets you ticking? These are patriotic people, South Africans. They share common values and principles. They love South Africa. Their visions for South Africa overlap 80% plus of the time. So the starting point, and as an activist, even when you are in financial services, if you don't mind me calling you that, that's why we're here, is because your activism is still running through your veins. You know the concept of a minimum program. When you have a minimum program around which you can coalesce, cohere, you go out. Doesn't matter which political party you come from the long list that was on the ballot paper. You say, I'm South African, I care about the fact that the South African economy is not growing, it is not delivering jobs, it is not delivering the revenue that we need to pay for social services, to develop our people, to build the infrastructure, to lay the foundation for a better future for our people. And of course, you can say, but I differ from the next guys because of 1, 2. But it makes for a different conversation. And what I like about the outcome of this last election is that it is forcing our people to come together and say, what is it that binds us? What is it that makes us South African? And then we can talk about the differences.
We start with
sometimes
the common.
Start with the common thing.
Common, because it's South Africa first. Now, you are engaging young people. Again, very briefly, what is your business case for them to stay and believe in this country?
To start with, we have seen the West. We have been through some of the most difficult times, Lincoln. And we have triumphed against the most severe adversity. There is a line that I like a lot. I hope that I don't butcher it, from President Mbeki in that fateful September when his own organization recalled him. Having won the support of 69.6% of South Africans supporting him, he could have elected to stand his ground. But he, somewhere in the statement he made, says, doom and gloom have never triumphed against adversity. You know, so given just our history, the things that we have been through, the leadership that our people have demonstrated, pulling us out of that quagmire, and made us, in a number of instances, the epitome of excellence. I have no doubt in my mind that we will triumph. The key thing then for young people is not to be permanently or perpetually negative. Of course, it's normal to have moments where you have got doubts about the future, but never allow yourself to be stuck in that place. Go back in history. You will find a few stories where South Africa confronted the precipice of the abyss. But leadership emerged and pulled us out of that.
Now, where do you see their role in turning the fortunes of the country for the better? Where do you see the youth playing a role in that?
No, the first thing is to start with themselves. Get the right orientation, that foundation of education, but care about your surroundings, care about your society, care about your peers. Don't be overly selfish. It's not bad to have some degree of selfishness, but if you become too consumed by the concept of self, everyone mind their own business, then you can't achieve superior outcomes going forward. And by the way, young people must embrace the notion that everyone is a leader, first of themselves and next of whatever little corner they get entrusted with, which can grow bigger over time as they pursue their careers. And they must, of course, learn to support each other, learn to support each other's initiatives, so to speak, be each other's keepers.
You and I and others get criticized because we have a non-racial view of life. We believe in our being that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. And we lead that way. Why do you think this notion of a non-racial society is still relevant today when others are saying maybe what our founding fathers were coming up with, maybe it's not going to work? And we say, what alternative is there? Because we want a South Africa where everyone, regardless of race, color, or creed, has a sense of belonging and can contribute to create something dynamic and new. Why do you remain a believer in this?
because I can't imagine the counterfactual working. I just can't. Perhaps I was indoctrinated too early in life to embrace the concept, but I like it. Yes. Partly perhaps because of my religious roots, but I also think that my socialization within the organizations that you and I have belonged to in our youth was sort of instilled in me that there is no better alternative to non-racialism. We have seen countries, I mean, history is replete with countries where people emphasize differences, whether they are founded on ethnic grounds, creed, religion, and so on. You've seen countries torn apart. Yes. If you read the history of Nigeria, sorry to mention a country, but they are a great example of this. It's terrible. Yes. You know, the balances that you always have to strike that sometimes don't always make sense, and they are doomed not to succeed. They are doomed not to produce optimal outcomes for all, rather. I like non-racialism. In fact, I resent the notion that sometimes when there is peace, when there is oneness, some people look for ways to divide us. Because, it sounds cliche, Sukwin, unity is strength. And we have made tremendous progress as South Africa to keep, this new 30-year-old or so nation together. We must not play games and allow anyone to use any notion of difference to divide us.
When we look at the future, as we conclude, we remain one of the most unequal countries in the world. You and I in financial services. Where do you see financial services play a role, right, in narrowing the gap, in bringing more people into the economy, either as entrepreneurs, or, how do you see that? And you see the Reserve Bank making some statements over the last few weeks about some of the plans they've got. Where do you see us as financial service leaders playing a role in helping this economy to be more inclusive?
We can do it in many ways. Let me perhaps talk about just two. Yeah. In the first instance, we are facilitators of economic activity. Yes. We are the oxygen that helps the economy live and thrive. Economies grow off the back of good intermediation that is facilitated by our sector. Yes. And growing economies create the foundation, the space for redistribution on a sustained basis. Not start, stop, boom, bust type change or transformation. Secondly, and this is exceptionally important, it's the consciousness that financial services must have. Those conversations that you and I and a couple of other colleagues would have, where we say, what is it that we can do to make sure that the broadest sections of our society don't feel alienated, don't feel left behind. Younger people in societies in far-flung parts of our country must feel that if they've got a business idea, in fact, in some instances, they can be helped to shape it a bit. Yes. When they put it before us, credit committees in our businesses, we take it as seriously as any other business proposal. And we care about them succeeding.
I want to finish with one thing. You and I are one of the 100 CEOs that got criticized because we chose to have a pledge that will work with the government of the day to solve some of the critical problems facing the country. Do you think that those who criticize us, who say, just focus on giving shareholder value, don't worry about getting yourself partnering with government because you'll be disappointed? I still think that we made the right decision. I think we should do more. What do you think?
The problem is that you and I think alike. There is a quote that I don't know the circumstances in which I made the statement, but it's attributed to me. It's not often that I would quote myself, but I said, it's just unthinkable that you can run a thriving business in a sea of chaos.
Yes.
So there is no contradiction at all between working with a legitimate government of the day to solve pertinent problems that the country faces, which are stumbling blocks to a thriving economy. Because it is a thriving economy that would enable us, you and I, and other colleagues that I've seen at this event, to compete for a bigger slice of an expanding cake. It is too narrow to think that ignore that and just care about making money whilst the economy is shrinking. You know, and money is important, but it is not everything.
Yes. I mean, this is
So good.
Thank you so much. Thank
Awesome
you
program.
for the ethical person that you are. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for showing young people that someone can reinvent themselves from the highest levels of the public sector now to the highest levels of financial sector. And again, the battles continue, but just in a different way. But to create a South Africa that works, a South Africa that's more inclusive, and a South Africa that's thriving for more than less people. Thank you so much.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for involving me in this wonderful work
Thank you.
that your foundation is doing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you